What is the most toxic thing a parent can say to a child? I have a list. I wish I aborted you too. I wish I put you up for adoption. List all the bad things about dad and then immediately tell me I look/act just like him. What did I do to deserve such a disrespectful child? Why couldn't I have a good one? I was not a bad kid at all. Always home, cleaning the house, cooking for her, good grades, people pleaser, etc. She wonders why I never talked to her about big things happening in my life, why I put 5,000 miles in between us, and why I haven't returned home for almost 10 years. Edit. I'm absolutely overwhelmed by all your lovely well wishes, and how many of you relate. In all that space I put between my mother and I and all the time I took, I created a lovely little life. I worked on myself so much, and I'm healing from the traumas I experienced. I so wish the same for everyone who relates. I'm attempting to reply to every comment and wish you all something lovely and positive, because you deserve it. If I miss yours, I still think you are lovely and wonderful and deserving of the best things life can offer. The next thing will be telling you and everyone else what a great mother she was and how ungrateful you are. Been there, seen that. Stay strong and away from the crazy. Constantly comparing you with your older siblings and extremely different treatment. It makes you feel inferior to them and like no matter how much you try or do, it will never be enough. I have this, but with my younger siblings. Why can't you be as successful as them? You are supposed to set the example. You are so lazy they work 10x harder than you. IDK dad. Maybe cause I had to start working at 15 cause you couldn't pay for school for 3 kids cause your ex-wife drank all the money away or gave it to her kid. Maybe if I had the time to do homework or study instead of working nights on a fake edu, provided I would have had better grades and wouldn't have had to spend my entire adult life in retail or food. I am the younger sibling and so many times my big brother gets on about how I'm so much better than him. It's incredibly clear that I'm the favorite and I hate it. You should tell your brother how you feel. I think it could be a type of subconscious reinforcement about his own self-worth. Not something direct and cheesy, but when he accomplishes something, try to be there and have his back. Even if he has some resentment because of the parents' comments, it could mean a lot to him. By the way guys, if you are enjoying this video so far, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel. It will help us out quite a bit, and if you don't enjoy the videos in the future anymore, you can always unsubscribe. Let's get back to the video. Talk about the other parent then compare you to them. You're just like your father. Right in the childhood trauma. Yeah, man. I'd forgotten how much that one stung. Getting hit with this one when I'm still waiting for his phone call for my 6th birthday, and especially getting my hopes up when I turned 10, 14, 16, 18, and 20. When I was young I would call my dad and he would say I'm coming over to get you, and I would sit by the window and wait for him. He would never come. My mom said it was heartbreaking to see. I've seen him maybe 12 times in my life. I'm 40 now and it still hurts. Huck. I know the feeling. Last time I saw my BO dad I was 10. 20 years later he walked by me and he didn't even recognize me. I keep telling myself I don't care, but boy oh boy, that up all my relationships, cause I keep thinking everyone will walk out on me. People need to wait better if they want kids. It's not fair to put a kid in the world to walk out on them like this. It may not be as harsh as other things stated, but the dreaded it's all in your head / you are just imagining it. As it turned out I wasn't imagining it, and now I struggle to differentiate what's real and what's not, because I was led to believe I thought I was imagining things constantly. Gaslighting is such a horrible thing to do. Especially to a kid. You are not alone. I always need a second opinion, because I think mine is invalid, and I imagine things. I always feel like I'm the problem in every situation. My narcissistic mom did this to me all the time. I'd tell her something awful she did, and she'd say I don't remember, that you're just imagining it. This is why I stopped going to therapy with my mom. She would just lie and deny anything she had done. It was pointless. My mom wants to go to therapy with me, but I refused because of this. I went no contact instead. That is the best route in some of these situations. Either she is looking for ammo or to stroke her own ego, but it is a rare person that would do the therapy and actually change any behaviors from it when directly confronted with how negative an impact she had. My mom made me and my sister go to a family therapist with her, but as soon as she started feeling judged, we never went back. We are moving and you're not welcome. This is what my dad said to me while blackout drunk, after he took my sister's pizza that I made, ate it in front of me, and then threw the pizza at me, after I asked him why the he's like that and walked away. We were supposed to be moving to a new place the next couple weeks after this fight. My sister's childhood best friend lived with us for several years, because her mother made good on that very threat. Her parents were divorced, and her father lived out of the area. Her mother decided she wanted to move, and told the girl that her brother was moving too, but she wasn't welcome, and could go live with her father instead. My sister's friend didn't want to move to where her father lived, so she moved in with us, and lived with us, until she went away to college 5 years later. My teens friend is going through this right now. You just helped me decide to let her stay here, as long as she needs to. Thank you. I ran away from my mother to my boyfriend and his family's house. They've never made me feel unwelcome. I think they have saved my life. I don't think I would have survived this past year and a half otherwise. You're probably helping this friend more than you can ever imagine. I wish it commits. My dad. Been told the same thing by my mother multiple times, that you up. I'm so sorry you had to go through that, and I hope and pray you have a happy healthy life now. My mum has been the same. Luckily for me, she didn't say it when I was very close to planning on how to actually do it, but because I knew what she was like, I left home for 4 months to get away from her when things were dark. She tried saying it again when I was in a better but not ideal place, and it really hurt. Not once had I said anything to her that would warrant her saying that to me. She'd ask me how my day went at work, and if it wasn't just it was fine, she'd tell me to go kill myself. I can't wait to get away from her. Your life has so much value, and it has nothing to do with her. Get through this, and one day you'll look back and realize how small and twisted she was, but it won't matter because you made it out. Plan for your own independence and get help. There are so many places and people that can help. You're worth it, and you will get there. Hang on. Thank you. I know that she does it out of jealousy and spite. She had kids by the time she was my age, and had a poor education, so she's been stuck in low-skilled jobs for her entire life, whereas I'm actually trying to advance in my career by studying and working hard. When I quit my job that had become very toxic after 4 years, the same day my mum started hounding me to get another job because I'm not allowed to be unemployed, even though I had worked full-time since the age of 16. I was looking for jobs, and she had seen me go for interviews, so I'm not sure what her issue was there. I had to leave though, so I visited some friends, family, and then went traveling, so I just didn't have to see her lol. Life would be better without you. You are the reason for our misery. Ah yes, the good old we can't take responsibility for our choices, so let's take it out on you kinds of. Heard that one so many times. Starting around 7 years old. 2 decades later it still hurts. Sure, I know it wasn't my fault. People are kind and will repeat that until they're blue in the face, but what many don't seem to understand is knowing doesn't erase the pain. Imagine someone sticks out their leg and trips a person without getting caught, and the person breaks their arm. 10 years later, that person learns the truth that it wasn't their fault. But that doesn't take away the residual pain, or surgical screws, or persistent difficulty using that arm from the damage done. Some people seem to move on a lot more effectively than others, but some don't. And I want to remind anyone in that boat that it's okay, you can hurt, you are under no obligation to move on in any sort of time frame, and there isn't necessarily something wrong with you for still hurting. Letting that pain control your decisions is another deal, but it seems like we often end up with this shame of not being able to move on, smiling uncomfortably and nodding when friends aggressively repeat, "It wasn't your fault," until they stop, and the like. It wasn't your fault, but you are no less for still hurting from it. Thank you for saying this. I was by my parents until I moved out at 20, when I finally confronted them about it, later than I should have. I was just told to stop blaming them, and I don't think I've recovered from that statement. A year later I had to take my father off of life support. I still miss him very much, but there are so many times when I realize how much of a piece of he was that only cared about himself. You're the reason why your dad and I almost divorced. I got this too. Also, you're always up so late. I can't even have with your mother. Screaming in my face on the school run. Fun times. JFC, my kid, 4 years old, is up a bunch preventing the fun times, but I cannot fathom saying like this to him ever in his life. I'm so sorry you had to endure that. I imagine saying that to my adult child, if I ever had some, after they are adult in a way you used to me and your mum so much. Yeah, right, could definitely see that being said in jest to your adult kid, so long as the relationship is otherwise healthy. If there's already a lot of the kind of people are mentioning in this thread being tossed about, then even as a joke it just goes on top of the pile of reasons why the relationship isn't great. Insulting your intelligence is a horrible thing for a parent to do. Something where if a friend or stranger had said it, you might just laugh/shrug it off, but your own parents saying it. A good parent should stay away from anything that can ruin your self-esteem, because they hold a lot more power than they tend to realize. My parents said I should have known who won all the World Cups, capital city of each country, all meanwhile they kept telling me to shut up whenever I asked questions. The whole time I was in school I tried my hardest to be the smartest person in the room, until now I don't believe it when friends tell me I'm smart. Sounds like my parents. With an added side of whenever a topic I was knowledgeable about came up, and I could turn it around, you don't expect me to remember that stupid, do you? My 9-year-old casually throws out information that he's learned at school during the day/week. Sometimes I ask what has learned, and he says he forgets lol. But the times he talks to me about what he's learned, I make a note about it, tell him it's really interesting. He'll ask me if I knew any of that info. Sometimes I will, other times I won't. Then I go and look up as much info as my tiny brain can register. And the next day on the way to school I engage in conversation with and ask him questions I know he can answer, but I know the actual terminology for as I spent the night reading lol, and we will do this daily until he gets bored and forgets his subject. It could be weeks before he tells me what he has learned again. But I try so much to learn it too, as I figure he's interested in that information enough to tell me all about it. There's a lot I don't remember/know. I would never tell him you expect me to remember that, do you? I try to remember that again/relearn, because he's knowledgeable about it. I don't believe you. When the school told her I'd been this happened to me as well. And my father said I ruined the family when the police came over to my house. I had actually forgotten I had told someone in school about it until they showed up. My father didn't take it very well. He was embarrassed I had said something. I'm 42 now, with boys of my own, and I am proud to say they don't have a relationship with my dad. They don't know him. My father-in-law is the best grandfather to them. I'm so sorry this happened to you. You're not alone. We are probably millions who sadly went through this. Me too. My cousin was in my family home, male to male. When I told her she said I don't believe you, and then she slapped me through my face. I'm 65 now, and she died alone in an state old age home. Wow. I'm so sorry. I know it will always be a thing that sadly we will always carry with us. Just know you're not alone. I'm here and many others are too. As for boys, people don't really think they can go through this. And of course they can, and it's the same horrible situation as a female. I only have boys, and since they were little I would explain to them what is no. I reminded them, if someone was out of line, to tell me right away, before it gets worse. And they will not be in trouble. I never wanted to have kids with your dad. He forced me to have you. My mom likes to remind me every so often that my dad never wanted kids, and he told her that if she wanted them, she would have to quit working and stay home to raise them. So 2 in 1, my dad didn't actually want me, and I ruined the career my mom loved. What pisses me off more is she didn't start telling me this until after my dad developed early onset dementia, so he couldn't even back up or refute the claims. Just her bitter word. I'm in my 30s now and try to be civil with my mom since her and my brother are the only family I have left, but these kind of passively up comments are why I moved hundreds of miles away as soon as I could. And I ruined the career my mom loved. You didn't choose to be born, so it's not your fault. Whatever the situation actually was, the blame lies on your mum and or dad. My mum likes to tell me how my dad didn't want a 3rd child, and my mum conveniently stopped taking her birth control so she could get pregnant again. She was afraid to tell my dad, so called his boss whilst he was at work and told her the news, and then my dad didn't come home for 3 days. But I'm here, and I must be reminded of it at least once every 6 months. Your uncle wouldn't mess with you if you didn't walk around the house like not told to me, but a childhood friend. Her uncle was arrested a few years after that, but the thing that hurt her the worst is that her mother assumed it was her fault. Wow, I can relate. When I told my grandma that dad had me, she basically said I must have asked for it by wearing something provocative. I was 16 at the time and wore a hoodie and jeans. Needless to say, I wasn't going to get any help. I couldn't have told anyone else anyway because I was afraid people wouldn't believe me, and my dad told everyone I was retarded to humiliate and discredit me. As an adult, I have long since cut off all ties and connections to my dad. I'm free of him. When I tried to tell my granny, dad's mom, that my dad was inappropriately touching me, she told me he would never do something like that. Part about that is my dad had already been to jail for my sister and some of my cousins before I was born. Also, my dad started telling everyone that I lie for attention so that no one would believe anything I said. I'm tired of pretending to love you. Wow, I thought it was going to be hard to top my dad's "I'm going to kill myself and it's your fault," but I found it. My mother said the exact same, with knife in hand as she closed her bedroom door. I was barely 10. She ultimately didn't do it, but I didn't know that until the following morning. Those words and that moment remain etched in my memory. I'm sorry your father said the same. It was never you though. My biggest regret was saying that to my father before trying to jump out a 27th floor window the next day. I got caught in the act and was pulled back down, but it weighed heavy on my father until he passed. Edit, he was never to me. I was a kid with problems that I didn't know I had, and I didn't know how to deal with them. I was only diagnosed as depressed and bipolar after my attempt. I do not in any way blame him for that. We made you so your brother would have someone to play with. I know a couple who had a kid. Didn't really seem to like kid. Was always at a sleepover in full-time daycare despite parents being home, and kid always having sleepovers at various relatives. Only spoke about kid to complain. It was an obvious joyless experience for all 3 of them. I was legit dumbfounded when said couple told me they were trying to have another kid. They had fertility issues and told me that the only reason they were even going through it was so unwanted kid 1 could have a playmate. Well, going through misery with a sibling is better than alone, I guess. It's not. That frustration and anger on the part of the older sibling has to vent somehow, and violence against the one thing no one is going to protect, the younger sibling, is pretty much ubiquitous in that scenario. There is no silver lining to an household. Not necessarily. There are tons of cases of houses with awful parent where siblings stick to each other and have really tight bonds. Also in this case it seems the parents are more neglectful rather than directly Neglect is a form of abuse, but you know what I mean. So having company might be what it takes for that kid to grow up just fine. Not the most toxic by far, but potentially the most common. Making fun of your kid for making a change in their life for the better. I was always antisocial and the complete opposite of athletic. When I began to try and work out to gain some muscle, I got teased by my parents. All that did was discourage me and make me want to quit. This could go for anything. Is your kid antisocial? The we lines low OKW ho DCI dead TO leave THE cavio and joy NUS is toxic and just encourages them to stay in their room. If your kid decides to make a positive change in their life, don't discourage them so you can get an easy laugh. Totally get where you are coming from here. I was always the shy and quiet kid my whole life until I found dance and realized I absolutely loved being on stage, which then led me to start auditioning for theater productions. My confidence was knocked from the start by my mother always telling me I wasn't good enough to get a reaction out of me, so sometimes I would just not turn up to auditions, cause I thought I would never do well. I only noticed how much this affected me when one year we were standing decorating the Christmas tree, which I would assume is a lovely cute festive activity for all the family to be happy, and my mother turned and said to me, "You're always so dramatic and just you should definitely audition for this character in that musical," and laughed and told me I was definitely suited for the part after I burst into tears. Chickened out of that audition last minute. I'm so sorry you've had that experience, bro. I hope you have a happy, healthy life now. You're the reason behind every problem in this family. Said to me word for word by my mother because I had a migraine and requested that they help keep my sisters as quiet as possible because I was hurting. I even asked to just be let out of the car so I could bus home, but they wouldn't let me do that either. They wouldn't help me with problems and they wouldn't let me help myself. How TF am I the reason behind every problem? You think I want migraines? No, I don't. It hurts so bad that it's increased my pain tolerance to the point that I have to have oozing pus sacs before I even notice an infection. I didn't ask for that amount of pain. If I had a choice I wouldn't hurt, but sure I caused every problem in the family by having a chronic illness. Your family is scapegoating you for being a mild inconvenience at times. I hope you get the help you need both for the physical pain and the emotional pain. A mom walking into the video store I worked at said to her 8-year-old daughter, "You always ruin everything." I was too young to know to say something, but knew there was nothing this poor girl could have done to deserve to be talked to like that. Migraines aren't even unusual. It baffles me reading through this thread how many people think they are going to get some perfect, always happy baby made of marzipan who is fine with being used as a punching bag. So this may not be as bad as some of the others in here, but as early as 10 years old my dad would tell me, "You know, I really thought you were going to be the one to make me proud. I'm a middle child, along with the person you are when you're 12 is basically who you're going to be forever." Add those together and you get a 24-year-old who is convinced it is physically impossible for them to ever be good enough. Thank that isn't true, because I was completely different at 12 with very serious mental health issues that made me angry, delusional, and terrified of everything. Anyone who says that basically just outs themselves as an adult 12-year-old whose opinions aren't worth a damn. No, no, no. The comments your parent made to me have been very slightly more subtle than some others on this thread, but they are unequivocally awful. Tearing down a child that way is evil. No offense at all intended to those who suffered the over comments from their parents. My parents did that to me, but passive aggressive almost seems worse in some ways to me. My husband dealt with this exact thing from his mother. He's almost 30 and still has to hear things like this from her. When someone behaves calmly while they are telling you how awful you are, you tend to believe it more because they seemed so rational when they were saying all that. Aggressive is messed up, but passive aggressive are just plain evil in my eyes. This is the end of the video. Thank you guys for staying with me till the end. If you enjoyed watching this, you might as well watch these too.